Hi everyone and welcome to this new tutorial. So for this tutorial I've decided on drawing this gorgeous Australian Shepherd puppy, mainly because there's a lot of nice transitions of the fur, from white fur to the tan fur to black fur. It's a Merle Australian Shepherd. You've also got, like, if I just move this up, you've also got the details of the mouth, a collar, how the fur lays over the collar. So I just thought it'd be a really good piece to draw for our first tutorial back here. Now I'm doing this on graphics drafting film because I think it's going to be the best paper to kind of show you how some of the different techniques work. Also, I find drafting film really forgiving, especially if you are quite new to drawing with coloured pencils. So I will leave a link to where I get that in the description box below. The pencils I'll be using will also be listed below, sorry. I will be using a combination of Faber Castell Polychromos and Caran Luminance. Maybe some Pablos, but I will try and just stick to the Luminance and the Polychromos for this piece. The reference photo is from Pixabay, and what I've done is I've actually drawn my line art on the reverse hand side of the drafting film. You can draw it on a scrap piece of paper and lay your drafting film over the top, but I just thought this would make it easier. And then I've just got a piece of white paper underneath so that I can see, obviously, what I am doing. So everything you'll need will be linked below. If I haven't linked anything and I've forgotten, just let me know, and I will get that over to everybody straight away. But yeah, I am going to make a start. We're going to start on this left-hand side of the eye. So I'm going to zoom us in and we'll get started. I'm going to start with the Faber Castell Polychromos, and this is, oh, if I can get it to focus, this is the Payne's Grey 181. And we're going to start with this by outlining the shape of the eye. Now you want to use light pressure, you don't need to press hard at this point. We want to build everything up nice and slowly. Even though we know that this area is going to be quite dark, I still like to just take my time. So just glazing or very lightly blending in one direction over the top. Like so. And as you do this, you just want to be quite slow. There's no rush as you're building any of this areas up. But we're just building up those darkest shapes first. I'm not using a super sharp pencil either because I don't need to. At this point, I'm just lightly mapping everything out. Going to map in these darker markings as well, just so that we've got them kind of in place. Okay, I'm then going to take the Luminance Sepia 10%. So this has got a nice kind of purpley grey tone to it. I'm just going to bring this in underneath the eye. If you don't have this colour, I would use your cold grey 2 from the Polychromos. So I just want to kind of lightly map in everything going on around the eye for now. And you can work over the top of that Polychromos markings here. Again, don't worry about the pencil outline. obviously it's on the reverse hand side. If you've drawn it on the side you're working on, lift it as you're erase it as you're working. Otherwise I'm just going to erase it once I have got the eye to how I want it to be. I am then going to take, I'm just looking, this silver grey, again from the Luminance. So you can take your cold grey one. And again, everything is super, super light pressure. Like so. And then coming in with the Polychromos Light Ultramarine. So this is a really nice light blue. Got nice blue eyes on this puppy. I know normally when I do tutorials I've all got quite dark brown amber eyes. So it's quite nice to do something different colour. Now I'm not worried about the white highlights because what I'm going to be doing is using my slice tool or my eraser to add them back in. If you want to kind of work around them, you can. And then I'm going to blend that with the cold grey too. Again, not worried about super sharp pencils. Just building up some layers of pencil. To start building up the that 3D-ness around the piece. Now I want to bring in those shadows, so I'm going to start with a deep cobalt green. This I really like in blue eyes for shadows. Again, I'm going to use very light pressure because I don't want this to be too dark. And we're just going to bring it in at the bottom of this eye where you've got that nice shadow. I'm going to bring a little bit down the edge here, and I might even just bring some into this kind of coming out of the pupil. And we darken that up as well. And then we want to go in with a cold grey 4. And you're just going to go over the top of that deep cobalt green. So on drafting film, I don't really look for sharp pencils or super sharp pencils. I just want to be able to blend these areas nicely. Also got this shadow under the top of the eye, so I'm just going to take the cold grey 4 under there. Again, nice light pressure. As we're doing this, it's all about just slowly building everything up. And then you can go over the top of that with the warm grey 5, which will just help build up that shadow. The drafting film I'm using as well, it's the double matte. So what this means is I can draw on the reverse hand side if I need to. I tend not to do it a lot, just how I work. But what I definitely like to do is with the darker tones, when it needs to be a lot darker, I like to come in on the reverse hand side to really enhance those blacks. This is the silver grey again. I like to use the Luminance on drafting film because they kind of push the pigment about, so you can really try and get a nice blend with the pencils. And then we're going to take that really nice bright blue of the Indanthrene blue. Let me just grab the right pencil, Indanthrene blue, for these areas coming out of the eye. Or coming out of the pupil. Bring a little bit into the shadow. And I might also just take a little bit of the Helio Blue Reddish, because this is quite vibrant. This is actually where you could work on the reverse hand side of the piece as well. This is quite nice, vibrant blues. You can go over that again with the light ultramarine. So what I like to do is just keep blending areas. You could leave the eye like this and it would look perfectly fine, but if you just push it a little bit more, you'll see how it just kind of helps take it to the next level. And again, there's no right or wrong with how you want to create a piece, how you want it to look. Going back to the Cold Grey 2, you know, you just have to create it how you feel you want your work to look. I think for me, if I stopped here, like some people would, again, nothing wrong with that, with the actual eye itself here. I just feel like it's a bit incomplete. I feel like there's so much more that you can add to it. Okay, I'm going to then take the Payne's Grey again, and we're going to darken circular motions. As soon as you start to darken these areas and make push that contrast, you'll see the difference as well. So at the moment we haven't really pushed our values, we've just built up those midtones more or less. I'm going to take the Helio Blue Reddish again, on the top of this eye, and that little shadow, and then also take the Sky Blue. Okay, to know how dark to go, we need to then come in with our black. Again, this is just the Polychromos black. I'm not pressing hard still because I want to be able to build up my layers. I know it's quite easy to say, and I do kind of say it, like how you can't get as many layers on the drafting film as, say, like the Fabriano that I normally use. And whilst I definitely can't get as many, I can still get a lot on the drafting film. And it's a lot more than people realise, because all you have to do is just keep that pressure nice and light. And you'll see as we do this piece just how many layers we can actually get on the piece to build up the depth, especially within the fur, the depth in our values, and also to help get that nice seamless blend in areas. It's a lot more sort of work with this paper than I think people expect of it. So already you can see that's just built up there. I'm just going to go back in with that warm grey 5. So maybe if we take the warm grey 3, again, I'm just going to bring this around the eye. And then if I go back to the Cold Grey 2, okay, what we are gonna do is take the Indanthrene Blue again, and we're going to use the sharpest point of the pencil. I'm going to add in these details within the eye, so I'm just going to zoom you in a little bit. Okay, so you zoomed in so you can kind of see a bit more of that detail. And you're just gonna kind of just flick out some of these linear strokes that you can see in the eye. Remember that your eyes are 3D, so you're curving some of the lines just to kind of capture that 3D roundedness to the eye. Okay, take that deep cobalt green again. Again, I'm using sharper pencils at this point because I want those finer details. Around the edge of the eye. And I might actually just take the earth green into that kind of shadowed area here. I find when I'm doing blue eyes, I really like to mix my greens with them. They're not always just blue. Kind of look for those hidden colours that you can see within the eye. And then again, that silver grey from the Luminance. So already you can see like we've built up a really nice amount of layers on this eye. Now in this kind of gap here, we've got some nice pinky tones. So I'm going to come in with the cinnamon. And just have it dark at the corners and then lifting that pressure so it's not as dark in the middle. And then it's a bit more warm toned here. So I'm going to come in with the warm grey. I'm going to start with the cold grey 4, which I know might sound funny when I've just said it's warm toned. But start with that colder tone. And then go over with the warm grey 3 to blend with the pink. Okay, and then what I'm going to do now is finally come back with my black. Now, what I might actually do is I've got the Derwent Drawing Ivory black. These are the darkest blacks you could possibly get. I'm going to use this to show you the depth that I can get with the black. Now, you can keep using your Polychromos black. You can use your Luminance black, your Pablo black, whatever black you've got. But we want to make these dark areas really nice and dark now. So I'm mainly going to use this in the centre because I want that fine and pencil lead of my Polychromos to get the fine details, but it just gets really nice and dark, and I can probably just do this outside bit here as well. Also, the more going back to the Polychromos black, the more layers we build up, the easier it is for our slice tool. Even on this paper, I still like to have a nice amount of layers for that slice tool to work through. Just going to lightly blend this eye again because we want it to look like this eyeball's 3D. It's sat in the socket. See just how dark that's looking. And again, we're going to bring out those highlights. Because at the moment, everything's kind of mid-tone, getting our shadows in. We need those highlights next. Being very careful as I do this. Just going to take the Payne's Grey. Again, just on that shadow here. Okay, and then I'm going to take my slice tool. So this is a ceramic craft knife. It's like a box cutter. But once you've got enough layers, we can just come through. And I can just lift away those highlights. Or add in those highlights. And I'm also just going to kind of scrape. we've got those nice little white highlights. A little bit here. And then I'm going to take my white pencil, again nice and sharp, and where you've just sliced, I'm just going to go in, quite firm pressure. With that white pencil. You can see how that's just built up that glossiness of the eye. So if I zoom you back out again to hang on, 1 point. So this is how it looks now, and you can see you've got that really nice shiny eye. Now if you wanted to increase the blues, again you could flip it over. So if I just flip this over, you could have your image on the reverse hand side. Now I'm just gonna erase the graphite, even though I can't see it. I'm just gonna lift it on this eye. I could make those whites pop, which is something I tend to like to do, is come in on the reverse hand side with the white and really make the whites pop. And then I could even come in with, this is the sky blue, make the blue pop. I could, if I wanted a bit more of that earth green in the shadow to shine through, come in with the earth green. I tend to just like to do the whites, and again if you really wanted those blacks to really pop as well, so especially like here. And here again I might just take that warm grey 5 in the shadow just to make sure I've got a nice shadow there. Again keeping that black where it's nice and dark. So this is what I like about this double matte, is, you know, we can draw on both sides, and then I might just come in with that cinnamon, really make this side pink. Okay, and then again you can just flip it back over and you've added some extra colours to those areas. So we need to start building up the fur around the like around the eye. So I'm going to start with the silver grey and create a bit of a highlight here, and then where we've got this lighter bit of fur, I'm going to use it as a base layer. Now I still like to do base layers even on drafting film, just kind of helps me map everything out. It's just how I prefer to work. Again I'm going to take the buff titanium, so this is the Luminance. You can use the ivory, so if you've not got the silver grey I'd use the coal grey one, and if you've not got the buff titanium I would use your ivory or warm grey one from the Polychromos. I don't know how well these will show up on here, but again very light pressure, and all I'm doing is just mapping in this tan marking around the eye. I'm not going to do too much more than that for now. I'm just going to take that silver grey, oops, in this little section as well, because it's that nice kind of greyish mark in there. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with the actual eye, and I'm looking at the colours kind of below or in the eye itself. I am gonna start, we've got this kind of purpley tone, but I'm gonna start with the sepia 50% from the Luminance. I would take your Van Dyke Brown if you're not using, actually if you want a purple tone, I'd actually go in with like the mauve from the Polychromos instead of the sepia 50%. Use it lightly and you can mix it with a warm grey free to kind of add that warmer greyish tone to the area. Now you're going to follow the fur direction and remember that your pencil strokes reflect the length of the fur. So short pencil strokes for short fur, longer pencil strokes for longer fur. I might actually come in with that mauve myself. But I'm just going to start with the sepia 50%. Again, I'm following that fur direction because we've got to remember we're building up the structure around the eye. Just going to lift my pressure so it's nice and light. So if I take that mauve myself, mainly kind of in this bottom section, it's definitely got that nice purpley tone. This is the point where if there's any colours that I'm adding and you don't see them, you don't have to add them. But if there's colours I don't add and you see them, do add them. You're just kind of building up the colours within the fur. We're not looking at detail. We're following the fur direction, but you're not looking for individual details yet. And then we're going to take, I'm also going to take that deep cobalt green. Again, just blending, doing circular motions, very light pressure. You can see it's very, very light. It almost looks grainy. It's very, very light pressure. And then we can take our Coal Grey 5. Over the top. I'm just going to flick down here for a little bit as well. Okay. Then taking the brown ochre 10% again from the Luminance. And I'm building this up very lightly. I would take your cinnamon and warm grey one from the Polychromos, which won't give you this yellowish tone. You could also do your ivory again. This kind of gives me that nice yellow undertone that I'm after. Could take the cream, but it could be a little bit too yellow. It's definitely one of those colours that I say if you can only get a couple of Luminance, I would definitely get the buff titanium, the silver grey, and any of the percentages, but I love this brown ochre 10%. I use it a lot in my work. A little bit coming down here. Again, I'm not worried about these pencil outlines. I'll erase them as and when I need to. At the moment, we're just mapping areas into place. I am going to take my cinnamon, so it's kind of along this edge. It's going to blend with the cinnamon and down here as well. Okay, and then I think we're going to take, I'm just looking at the colours, I'm going to take the burnt ochre to start with. Now you'll see that I'm ignoring any of those like whiter hairs coming across. We can add them in again with that slice tool, or you can use your Tombow Mono Zero razor as well. I do make a lot of use of the slice tool when I'm using drafting film. Again, following that fur direction. Nice light pressure still. So we're building up all our layers really nicely here. You can see nothing's too dark yet. It's all super light. I'm just glazing over the top. Now, if you struggle with pressure, hold your pencil higher up. The higher up you hold the pencil, the harder it is to press super hard on the page. I'm going to come in with a green gold on this side of the eye. Again, nice flicking motions. So I'm trying to build up these lighter tones before we come back and darken up the markings around the eye as well. It's easier to blend those darker pencil strokes over these lighter tones. And then we can take the brown ochre, which again is going to bring in a bit more of a yellowish tone. So anywhere where you see more of those yellowy tones, add your brown ochre. With this kind of colour fur, this tanned fur, I do like to kind of bring in a lot of yellows, reds, pinks. You can kind of chuck so many colours at it, which again just builds up that depth really, really nicely. If you want to have another drafting film piece to have a go at next month on Patreon, I'm going to be doing a fox on drafting film, which obviously is going to be a bit more orange toned. Again, it'll give you more skills on using drafting film. It's a really easy paper to use, I find, anyway. Okay, so we want to bring in those orange tones, so I'm going to come in with a sanguine. Really like this for this kind of coloured fur. Again, I'm following that fur direction. Thinking of it as more clumps of fur, not individual fur. So I'm using the flat edge of the pencil, so it's covering more of the paper. Rather than thinking I've got to draw individual fur. Now it looks like we're doing individual fur, and as the more layers you build up, the more it will look like that. but don't kind of be too focused on doing individual details at this point. We're still not on about details. We are building up just our colours. It's all about the colours and the shapes that we can see. I'm going to go back to the brown ochre 10% to blend, so you can use your ivory, and you'll see the luminance really do a really good job of just kind of like smudging the colour almost together. Again, this is super light at the moment, so I'm just slowly building everything up. Everything I do is very slow, very methodical, to get it to that desired look that I am after. Now we want to come in, I'm going to start bringing in some of my browns. Now I'm going to start with quite a neutral brown. This is the Van Dyke brown. And again, it's just about flicking. Kind of flick up there. Kind of just flicking back and forth to build up the colours that we can see. Definitely need to bring in some of the burnt sienna as well. Again, as I'm building this up, I'm following that fur direction. I know I say it all the time, but it is really important because it's building up the shape and the structure of this puppy's face, especially around the eye here. Which is obviously what we want to do. I'm going to come in with the Venetian red, which I really like to use as well. I'm using this before I come in with the burnt sienna. Again, I'm not using this across the whole section, it's just in areas where it's got that kind of pinky red tone. And then we can take our burnt sienna. Whoops, sorry, knocking the camera. I'm going to go back in with the green gold. In this centre bit, we're going to take the brown ochre because we want it to stay that kind of nice yellowy tone. See, that green gold just kind of makes everything look a bit more vibrant. And then back to my sanguine. Again, that nice bright orangey tone. And then again, I'm just going to take that brown ochre 10%, so you can take your ivory. If you're just using Polychromos, just to blend again in this little section. Okay, let's take our Caput Mortem. This is again a pencil that I use a lot within my red tones. It's a nice kind of transition colour. And then you can take, I'm going to take the burnt umber, I think. Let's have a look. Let's see if this works. Okay, back to our Van Dyke brown. Okay, so darkening up the eye, I'm going to go back to my Payne's Grey. And again, you're just going to kind of flick and follow the fur direction, but again, don't worry about those individual hairs because we'll add them all in with the slice tool. Still kind of just following the direction that the fur is going in though. You could also actually take the, or use the dark sepia. And just go back to that dark, sorry, back to the Payne's Grey. Hopefully you can see, like, we're still starting to kind of get really nice shape to the eye by doing it this way, just taking our time. And then let's take our Coal Grey 4. Again, don't worry about this kind of going dark here. We will bring in the lighter tones. Just one colour on the page and quite a bit of colour. You know, you can see we've built up quite a lot. This is the dark sepia again. Might just go back to the burnt sienna. I'm going to come kind of at the bottom here. And then a colour that I haven't used, again, as I say, I throw a lot of colours at my work. This is the Bista, which I know is not for everybody, but it just works for how I want my work to turn out. I know when I first started I wouldn't have used this many colours, but now that I do, I just feel like for my own work it looks unfinished if I don't do as much as I do. Okay, one last thing to do now then. So either take a Coal Grey 1 or your Silver Grey. I'm just going to blend over the blue tones here with the Silver Grey. And then I'm also going to take that Brown Ochre 10% again and just blend over the tanned areas one last time. Again, it's building up layers. I'm not pressing hard, just wanting everything just to kind of blend and smudge again against each other. And then this is where the magic is about to happen. So what we are going to do is we are going to take, our slice tool, and we are going to start to follow that fur direction and building in those individual details. So you can do this whichever section you like. I do tend to kind of work all over the place. Again, I'm just going to follow the fur direction. Especially as you kind of come around the eye, you want to be adding in these little flecks of fur. And again, I'm following that fur direction. And you can see it's building up some really nice detail here now. know my hand's going to get in the way a bit. But... you can see how it's just starting to really bring the piece to life. That's why I focus on building up quite a bit of layers. And why I don't worry about kind of not adding in these lighter hairs at the time, because I know that I can come through and add them afterwards. Okay, so you've kind of removed some of that pigment. What we're going to do now is go back and add it back in, which I know sounds weird, but it helps build up the depth within the fur. So I'm going to come back with the dark sepia, kind of just ignore what you've done. And again, you're just going to start to build up the shapes that you can see. You can kind of work around some of those slice markings if you want. And I don't mind if I'm going to go over some of them as I kind of rebuild some of these shapes. Because again, we're going to add in pigment, which is what we're doing now. Adding back in the pigment, adding some depth. And then we're going to remove it all again with the slice tool once more. Because as I say, I just find it really kind of helps add that realism to the fur. Now it won't take us as long as it's taken us to build up all this fur, but it definitely helps. I'm going to take the Coal Grey 4. Again, just coming down. I'm going to bring in a bit more of that purple tone. So this is the mauve from the Polychromos. Again, at this point, it's just about anywhere where you feel you just need a little bit more colour. So I want a bit more purple. Just keep building everything up how you want it. I'm going to go to the Van Dyke Brown. And again, I'm kind of flicking upwards in between some of those markings as well. And then the burnt sienna. What you can see as well is I've not had to remove the graphite lines as such because of the amount of pigment we've got on the page. You don't really see them. I will be erasing them as we go, but that's kind of how you know you've got a nice amount of pigment on the page, is those graphite lines do sort of disappear the more you work on the piece. I think what we need here actually is a bit more of like a reddy tone. So what I'm going to do is come in with the dark red. Let me just find it. Again, this is the Polychromos dark red. Got sort of a stray hair there, so I'm just added that in. Okay, back to that burnt sienna. And then the sanguine. And then I'm going to go over everything with the burnt ochre again, just to bring in a bit more of that nice orangey tone. And then I think just for that little corner here, I'm just going to come back in with that cold grey 4. Okay, then this is the burnt umber. Again, this is the point where I get a little bit kind of, the perfectionist in me takes over. And I just keep adding till I'm kind of, yeah, happy with the colour balance now. I want my drawing to look like it's good. So I do get a bit picky with areas. This is the warm grey 5. Again, you might kind of think, you look at your piece and go, do you know what, I'm happy with the colours. So then you can go back in. This is the dark sepia, just to darken up this area again one last time. Yeah, when you feel like you've got enough pigment and you're happy with the colours, you're happy with the placement of everything, you can then go back in with your slice tool again and just do that slice layer one last time, which I'm just about to start. And then once we've done this slice layer, I think we'll end this part here. It gives you a nice kind of taster of how I'm going to be tackling this piece. Brown ochre 10%. I also get to the point with the drafting film where, again, like the Fabriano, it starts to feel really buttery, and I know I've got enough layers on the page that I'm happy with. So again, I'm going to take my slice tool. So again, you want to, when you're doing this next layer with your slice tool, you want to kind of ignore where you've already put in those slice marks. Kind of look at it with fresh eyes and just start pulling out those highlights again. Don't worry if you've already gone over with the slice tool, because again, this adds that depth that we're after. Still following the fur direction. Like so. You should be able to see is like the depth that we get in. All I kind of really want to capture within fur, especially when you've got a dog like this Australian Shepherd that has a double coat. You want to be showing that, you know, there's quite a nice thick coat to this puppy, even as a puppy. What I'm going to do just before I finish is take that white pencil and just bring in some of those sliced marks. Really bringing them out a little bit more. Again, we could also do it on the reverse side, which I will do in a second. So if I just flip this over, again, I'm just going to, lift the graphite because we don't need that. Being careful not to lift the pigment that I've added to the eye already, because it will erase very easily. So one good thing about this paper is if you feel you've got an area wrong, you can go in with your eraser. So if I, for example, this top part of the eye, I can just come in with that eraser. You can see it's just lifted that corner so easily. So that's why I say it's a really good paper. I'm just going to come back in with that black to add that back. It's a really good paper for beginners because you can really easily adjust your whites, adjust your pigments. So again, I'm just coming in with a white and then just adding it over some of those nice light whites. And then again, if I just flip it back, and you can see that it's looking really good. Again, you could, this is fiddling, but you could kind of come back through with a dark sepia. Just kind of go in between some of those marks now, just to redefine it. But actually, I am happy with how that looks. So for part one, I will leave it here. I'm just going to clean up that pigment there. Yeah, so part one, we've got the first eye drawn in. What we're going to do is we're going to keep coming over on this left hand side before we start coming over on the right hand side of our little Australian Shepherd puppy. So if you have any questions about this so far, do let me know. I hope you can kind of see how you can work so much with drafting film. You can still build up a lot of layers and we can get some really super fine detail with the slice tool. There is some individual hairs we need to add, but we need to kind of bring in the rest of the face before we do that. So yeah, any questions, let me know down below, and I will see you all for the next part. Bye everybody.